There's a few things that we can do on our GDC to help us with the number unit. So to find these, we need to open up a new calculator page. And the first thing I'm going to show you is how we can use it to help us with factors and multiples. So if, for example, a question was asking me to find the multiples of 4 or the factors of 10, then I can go into menu, number, and we can go into the least common multiple and the greatest common divisor. And this finds us the LCM, the lowest common multiple, or the highest common factor, which the calculator calls the greatest common divisor, but it's the same thing as the HCF. We can also find just factors of a number. So for example, if I'm looking for factors of 12, then I just type in 12 and I press enter, and it tells me that the prime factorization is 2 times 2 times 3. If I was needing to find the factors of 36, then it's 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So I can use that to check any of my answers, but obviously in the test you should still show working out. If you are asked to find the lowest common factor between, or the lowest common multiple between two numbers, then we can do menu, number, lowest common multiple, and we type in the two numbers. So for example, 12, 36. And again we press enter, and then it will give me the answer. So it will tell me the lowest common multiple between those two numbers. So again, I could do that with a different pair of numbers. So 20 and 35, and 140 is the lowest common multiple. If I wanted to find the highest common factor, then I click number 5, and again I just type in those two numbers, and I find that my highest common factor is 5. We can also use the GDC to help us with fractions. So if you're wanting to write a fraction into the GDC, then you can use the control and then the division button, and it will show it as a fraction. So for example, 3/4, and I might want to do 3/4 divided by, and then a second fraction, 1/2. So this is just used to check your answer again, but it would then give me my answer. Now, imagining that you want that answer as a decimal rather than as a fraction, you can either press Control, Enter, which will now change it to a fraction. It will change it to a decimal, instead of the fraction. Or the other thing that you can do is do menu, number, and you can either convert it to a decimal or you can convert it to a fraction. So you can use these two things to change any answer from fraction to decimal. So for example, if I had 3/4 or 3/5, then I can do menu, number, convert to fraction, convert to decimal, and it tells me that it's 0.6. If I had 0.45 and I want to convert that to a fraction, then I press enter so that it's stored in the calculator, and then I'm going to do menu, number, convert to fraction, and it's 9/20, and it will always put it in its simplified form. You can use this for percentages as well. So if you've got 35%, and we can use the percent button. So the percentage button is in the question mark, exclamation mark, and it's the percent button there, and we can store that, and it will write it as a fraction, and then we can use the conversion to write it as a decimal as well. So we can get it written in 3 different ways. If you're wanting to check any powers, then we would use the power button, which is this part here. So for example, if I wanted to do 4², then it's 16. Don't forget, if you've got any negative number, so if you've got a negative number, we use this button here for the negative. And we need to make sure we've got brackets around it before we do the squared, otherwise it won't give us the right answer. If you want a bigger power, so 4 cubed for example, we press the button next to it and we can then type in any number that we need, and that would give us the answer for a bigger power. And similar with the square root, I do control and that brings up the blue button. So the square root of 16 for example is 4. If I wanted to do a cube root, I can do control and then the power, and then I can write down the cube root, or it might be the 5th root, the 6th root, whatever it is that I need of the number, and then it will give me my answer. And then the last thing that you're going to be using is nsolve. So nsolve is really useful if you're trying to find an unknown. So perhaps you've done Pythagoras and you've got 4 squared plus something squared, so the side that you're trying to find, is equal to 10 squared. And you're trying to solve that. If you just type it in, it won't work. But instead, we can go to Menu, Algebra, and Numerical Solve. And we can use this for percentages, for compound interest, simple interest, anything where you're rearranging it to find an unknown. And we can then type that same equation in, so 4 squared plus b squared equals 10 squared. And whoops, we need to remember at the end, we need to put comma, so that's the comma button down here, and the letter that I'm trying to find, so for example B, and then I press enter and it will give me my answer for the unknown. So anytime you're using nsolve, you type an equation, so it should have an equal sign in there for it to be an equation, and then you put comma and the letter that you're trying to find. And you can use that in various different places in this unit.